From stories around the world to stories here at home, this is the National News Broadcast. A pleasant evening. I'm Dilanjali Ananda.
Good evening, I'm Clifford Richards. First of all, we take a look at the headlines.
73% of the corona-infected patients in Sri Lanka have fully recovered. The number exceeds 16,600. The Minister of Education says a decision will be taken on the GCE ordinary level examination if it is unable to reopen all schools within the next 2 weeks. Prominence is being given to rural development in the implementation of budget proposals. Disparities in testimonies of the private security officer of the former president before the Easter Commission. Fertilizer is being provided to farmers on time despite the pandemic. The Indian economy faces serious setbacks for the second consecutive quarter as a result of the corona pandemic.
We begin with news from home. The group of representatives of the Maldives, headed by Maldivian Defence Minister Mrs. Maria Ahmed Didi, has met Prime Minister Mahinda Rajapaksa at the Prime Minister's official residence in Vijayarama yesterday. The delegation arrived in the island to participate in the 4th Trilateral National Defence Advisory Conference on Marine Security Cooperation between India, the Maldives and Sri Lanka. They engaged in a discussion with the Prime Minister on issues pertaining to regional security. The meeting also focused attention on controlling of heroin racketeering and underworld gangs, as well as on prison reforms, terrorism and extremism. Among those who have participated, the discussion included Deputy Chief of Staff of Defence in the Maldives, Brigadier General Abdul Rahim Abdul Mateen, Maldivian High Commissioner to Sri Lanka Omar Abdul Razak, Defence Advisor Colonel Ismail Nazir, State Minister Ajit Niwad Cabral and Prime Minister's Secretary Gamini Senarath. Meanwhile, Prime Minister Mahinda Rajapaksa, issuing a message in connection with the International Day on Strengthening Solidarity with the Palestinian people, expressed wishes on the inclusion of a sovereign state of Palestine in the world map in the near future. He further points out that the relationship between Sri Lanka and the Palestine is of special nature. The President in his message also stated that Sri Lanka will extend maximum support to the friendly people and the state of Palestine in the future as well. Palestinians are still confronting a military rule. The communiqué added that the humanitarian and economic status of the Palestinians have been subjected to further deterioration by acts of brutality, including bombing and establishment of Israeli settlements. Many Palestinians had sacrificed by laying down their lives for an independent Palestine. The day of the 4th strengthening of solidarity with the Palestinian people should be viewed as a means to minimize the tragedy and as an attempt to grant justice to the depressed people. The Prime Minister in his message also recalls with gratitude the honour bestowed upon him by handing him over the chairmanship of the alliance reformed in Sri Lanka to safeguard the Palestinian liberation organizations. He also extends thanks for awarding him the highest award of Palestine, the Star of Palestine, in recognition of his mediations on the international level on behalf of Palestine.
The tripartite conference of the Indian Zone Security Cooperation among the countries Sri Lanka, India and the Maldives commenced in Colombo today. Well, this is the 4th security conference between this group of countries. Sri Lanka is represented at the conference by Defence Secretary retired Major General Kamal Gunaratne. The Indian delegation is headed by the Indian National Security Advisor Ajit Doval. The Maldives is represented by its Defence Minister Maria Ahmed Didi. The trilateral dialogue on oceanic security has commenced in the year 2011. This year's conference is being conducted after a lapse of 6 years.
Chairman of the Presidential Task Force on Economic Revival and Poverty Elimination, Basil Rajapaksa, says that in implementing budget proposals, prominence should be given to development projects presented by rural committees. He further says that the authority on the implementation of the relevant proposals is entrusted upon governors, chief provincial secretaries and district secretaries. This was disclosed at a meeting held yesterday, presided over by Chairman of the Task Force, Basil Rajapaksa, and attended by governors, chief provincial secretaries, ministry secretaries, district secretaries, additional district secretaries, and district planning directors. The aim of the government is to bring in a practical manner for the people. The ultimate objective of the budgetary proposal is to fulfill the targets of the Saubhagya Dakma policy statement. The budget proposals include opinions received from specialist committees, ministries and also from the general public obtained through the Gama Samaga Pilisandara program. The responsibility lies with provincial and district officials to prioritize the tasks under 6 categories of development objectives. They are entrusted with the task of implementing a systematic way to implement the subject matter of ministries and ministers as presented through the budget. The work is being coordinated under the guidance of the Presidential Task Force on Economic Revival and Elimination of Poverty. The Gama Samaga Pilisandara program is broad-based to seek the opinions and proposals of people in 14,000 villages on how to carry forward the proposals presented to enhance the economy of the country. It is also scheduled to implement on the provincial level the Vada Samaga Yali Gamata series of programs with the aim of receiving the support of those who were not represented and also of the state officials. Mr. Basil Rajapaksa further said that the program will be implemented during the period of 14th to the 21st of this month. It was also pointed out that a sum of 2,000 million rupees is set aside through the budget for the development of rural industries. He further said that the opinions and suggestions received on the rural level will be listed according to priority by a main rural committee. Then they will come under the approval of regional development committees prior to implementation. The chairman further said that the government has allocated 3,000 million rupees to uplift distance education-related activities in rural schools.
Well, the government has expressed concern over the measures taken by the Fitch Institute to downgrade Sri Lanka's financial rankings. A communique issued by the Minister of Finance says that it is not appropriate to embark upon such an action, totally disregarding the program and also the budget proposals. The Fitch Institute has taken measures to downgrade Sri Lanka's status from B to C grade. The Finance Ministry release says Sri Lanka does not accept the downgrade, as it fails to recognize the robust policy framework of the new government for addressing the legacy issues, including the concerns raised by Fitch Ratings and ensuring ongoing economic recovery and macroeconomic stability of the country. The communique further points out that the government's economic policy implementation program is being carried forward continuously, even amidst the setbacks of the COVID-19 pandemic. The Finance Ministry expresses optimism in receipts of direct foreign investments in the forthcoming quarters, despite a somewhat reduction in this respect on the first half of this year. The budget for 2021 has introduced a new economic intrusion of the government. It adds that, however, the Fitch Institute has not taken into consideration these developments before taking their decision.
Private Security Officer of the former President testifying before the Presidential Commission inquiring into Easter Sunday attacks said that he has forgotten whether the former Director of State Intelligence Service, Nilantha Jayawardena, had given him a telephone call to connect him with the President, who was staying in Singapore. The Presidential Commission says that there had been disparities in the evidence given by him to the police unit of the Commission and the evidence given before the Commission yesterday. The Presidential Commission has interrogated Priyantha Pushpakumara, the private security officer of former President Maithripala Sirisena, yesterday. He said that at the time of the Easter attack, the former president was engaged in a private tour to Singapore and that he also accompanied him. When he was questioned whether former Director of State Intelligence Nilantha Jayawardena called him during this period, he replied that the former intelligence chief talked with him, but he was not 100% certain of the accuracy of the statement. When inquired whether he was aware of the bomb blast in Sri Lanka during their first visit to Singapore, he said that he came to know of the incident through the telephone call of diplomat. He also said that thereafter they were informed of the incident by Secretary Uday Seneviratne, the Prime Minister and the IGP. At this instance, Chairman of the Presidential Commission and Justice has informed that this witness was present in the Commission Hall at the time of former President Maithripala Sirisena giving evidence. He added that the witness by the time had given a statement to the police unit after listening to the testimony of the former president. He added that thereafter the witness had left the premises.
The National Operational Center for the Prevention of the Spread of COVID-19 disease says that the percentage of fully recovered COVID-19 patients in Sri Lanka has increased to 73.13. It adds that accordingly, 16,656 patients have been fully cured. 430 cured patients were discharged today as well. 52 fully cured patients who were undergoing treatment at the COVID-19 intermediate treatment centres in the Polonnaru district have left the centres today. They are residents of Kurunegala, Radhapura, Gampaha, Badulla, Matara, Galle and the Colombo districts. 11,892 fully cured patients were discharged from hospitals since the beginning of this month until today. The highest number of discharges were reported on the 5th of this month. The percentage of the fully cured was 73.13. Therefore, 26.40% of patients are continuously receiving treatment. This amounts to 6,012 patients. 274 COVID-19 infected patients were identified in the country today. They were all close contacts of the Palyaguda COVID cluster. 13,286 PCR tests were conducted yesterday. The total number of PCR tests conducted so far is 803,001. Meanwhile, 8 more COVID-19 related deaths were reported in the country yesterday. They were all patients in the Colombo district, namely Colombo 13, 9, 15, 2 and Colombo 10. The Director General of Health Services says that in addition, a prisoner in the magazine prison in Colombo has also died due to COVID-19. The Ministry of Health says necessary measures have been taken to prevent the spread of the disease from identified patients to their fellow inmates. So far, 908 patients have been identified in prisons. State Minister Kanchana Wijayasekara arrived at the temporarily closed Palyaguda Fish Market Complex today. He was engaged in a discussion with 154 leading traders in the trading complex regarding the reopening of the fish market. The WHO has issued a series of recommendations for sports. It has been stated that it is essential for persons of all age groups to engage in physical exercising in order to prevent the spread of the disease and also to enhance immunity. 16 more staff members attached to the ear, nose, throat treatment unit of the Colombo National Hospital who have contracted COVID-19 have been identified. Meanwhile, further group of 277 Sri Lankans stranded in Dubai, Doha, Abu Dhabi and India were brought to Sri Lanka. The Sri Lanka Railway Service says train operations will be restricted in the weekend. However, all trains have been deployed in service in the previous week will be redeployed from next Monday. 52 persons who have disobeyed health instructions in the pandemic situation were arrested in the past 24 hours that ended at 6 a.m. today. Up to now, 796 persons have violated the law and have been arrested. The isolated area of Atalugama was subjected to inspections by a Bell 212 helicopter and drone aircraft of the Sri Lanka Air Force. The aim of this mission was to apprehend those who engaged in unauthorized loitering. The operations were being totally and jointly carried out by the Sri Lanka Police and the Sri Lanka Air Force.
The Chief Epidemiologist, Dr. Sudat Samaravira, says requested everybody to extend support to the coronary prevention program by having PCR tests.
We can see that in some places that the people are not volunteering to coming forward for the PCR testing. That what we are doing the PCR testing is a simple test that to identify COVID-19. All the recognized methodology all over the world is identifying COVID-19 patients as early as possible, isolate them from the other people, and also that investigate the close contacts of the patients and identify more cases and quarantine those who are not having the disease to ensure that they will not spread, they will not get the disease and spread to the other people. So this is that very much essential to control or break the chain of this COVID-19 spreading. So that is because of that it is the duty or it is the responsibility of all the citizens come forward for testing with the COVID-19. This is a voluntary test that we are not forcing it, but people should be cooperative. Otherwise, what will happen is they will get ill. Sometimes it will be ended up with complications. There are some elderly people in the home. There's a very high risk that they are getting the disease and also that end up with death. So because of that, it is the all responsibility of all the citizens of the country to come forward when it is necessary and tested for COVID-19.
We now come back home with more local stories. Minister of Education Professor J.L. Peris says that a decision will be taken on the conducting of the GCE ordinary level examination if it is not possible to reopen all schools in the island within 2 weeks. The minister was responding to a query raised in this regard in Parliament today. He added that the contribution of principals and teachers have been appreciated in the face of the COVID-19 pandemic. Boards of the Ministries of Youth and Sports, Water Supply and Power and Energy were discussed in Parliament today. Parliamentarian Shanta Bandara has questioned whether the GCE O-levels can be conducted as scheduled. Minister of Education Professor J.L. Peris has replied saying that there are 10,165 schools in the island and that only 5,100 of them have been opened. The minister added that if health authorities say it is impossible to open all the schools, they would be unable to conduct the exam as scheduled. The minister further said that a decision in this regard will be taken in a week's time.
Minister Mahindananda Aludgamage says that fertilizer stocks will be provided in time in farmlands in spite of the pandemic situation. He made these remarks engaging in an inspection tour of fertilizer imports in the port premises today. 2 shiploads of fertilizer imported by the State Fertilizer Company were unloaded in the harbour today. The normal quantity of fertilizer discharged in a day is 4,000 metric tons. However, unloading has now been restricted to 1,000 metric tons per day due to the existing epidemic condition. It has also been pointed out that experienced labourers are needed for handling cargo of fertilizer. The present labour force in this connection is restricted to 25%. Minister Mahindananda Aludgamage has given instant solutions to the problems faced by the labourers and the officials working under threatening conditions. The minister has appreciated the commitment of the workers to prevent an island-wide fertilizer shortage. All lorry drivers engaged in fertilizer distribution are being subjected to PCR tests. It has been observed in the minister's inspection tour that the shortage of drivers is created due to the delays in the receipt of PCR test reports. The minister also engaged in coordinating efforts to obtain the services of personnel in the 3 armed forces, the police and the civil defence task force in the distribution procedures of the fertilizer companies. The minister has requested the workers to act with maximum efficiency in order to not burden the farmers due to the delays in the harbour. The minister had instructed chairman of the Lakpohora company, Janat Vidanage, to fulfill the basic requirements of the workers. Chairman of the Ports Authority, General Daratnaka, and officials also took part in the tour.
Rain was not definitely welcomed at all. That's the end of the news. Do enjoy the rest of the programs. Take care and good night.
Good night.